right, girls, you're going to be in the SLC. Fellas, if you put the balls up, and we're going to sit on the floor again today like we did last time. They've changed our cleaning products.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't used to be able to smell them.
Gotta get stronger to combat.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so
All right, yeah, if we can get everybody on the floor, that'd be awesome today. Thank you, guys.
Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
right, everybody, let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, today we have a special guest. You've probably remember seeing him around campus a while before, and you very well may know him personally. But this is Stevie Vargas, Coach Vargas' husband, and so y'all give him your attention.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. As he said, I'm Steve Vargas. I'm sure most of you have seen me up here before. Today I'm going to touch on a couple of things. I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone a little bit, okay? Number one, not great at public speaking. And number two, I'm going to tell you guys about how I grew up and how I've learned life lessons and made a lot of bad decisions to end up where I'm at today and to become the man I am today. And I'll fill you guys in, let you guys into my life, which is something I've never done before, so if you'll bear with me. It'll be a pretty chaotic transition as I try to hit all these points for you. So I want to start out, I don't know if any of you have ever heard the alcoholic father scenario, right? So you have a doctor on one end of the spectrum, an alcoholic on the other. Both are brothers, right? They ask the doctor, hey, how'd you become a doctor? You know, what was your motivation? What drove you? How'd you end up where you are today? And the doctor says, well, my father was an alcoholic, right? I saw what I didn't want to be, so that drove me to become something outside of what I knew. Same questions asked to the other brother, right? Hey, man, why are you an alcoholic? You know, you've been doing this for years. When are you going to figure this out? He says the same thing. This is all I know. This is what I've become because that's all I know. I reverted back to the basics. So keep that in mind as we transition through this. So basically this story is going to follow my brother and I as we grow up. Growing up, we were pretty poor. We've slept under bridges, on couches of people we didn't know, in cars, things of that nature. So my mom had my brother and I when she was 15 and 16, right? She made some bad decisions in high school. That affected us as in our adolescent stages up through teens and all the way up to now me being a 32-year-old man. So with that being said, so our life starts out, we moved to San Angelo, Texas, to a small project there in a predominantly black neighborhood. My first experience with that was when I got there, because I was a Hispanic kid in a predominantly black neighborhood, I got jumped for that, right? Because I wasn't the right color, I was in the wrong neighborhood, just so you have an idea of where we grew up. Drugs were rampant, okay? Inside my home and outside my home. At the age of, when I was in 3rd grade, 4th grade, I was pre-packaging crack cocaine for my parents to sell so that we could afford to eat, right? Me being that young, I didn't know that wasn't what other kids were doing, but I know it put food on the table, right? Same thing with my brother. Around that time, you know, we were verbally abused, mentally, physically, everything in between, okay? And when I say abused, I'm talking beat down, extension cords, 2x4s, shoes, wire hangers, you name it, it happened to us. That's what happens when you have people who don't know how to raise kids that become parents and feel that that's the way you discipline kids. I'll tell you right now, that's not the way it's done. At this time, in this transition, I didn't know God. You know, my school of thought was, if my own parents don't love me, how can God love me, right? How could there be someone outside of the realm of my understanding that cared for me, loved me, and wanted me to be good and do good things? So I didn't know God. God wasn't taught in the household, nothing like that. Church was unheard of. You know, it was so taboo for us and so strange for someone to mention, hey, you know, God loves you, Jesus loves you. You know, there's good things that will come because all we knew was what we had in front of us, which were parents that were verbally, mentally, and physically abusive. So when I was, at the same time, my dad had just gone to prison for manufacture and delivery of cocaine. So he did about 5-6 years in prison. That left my mom and my brother and I and my stepdad, who was an alcoholic, and my mom, who became addicted to cocaine when we were around that age as well. So what did I turn to? Where did I look? As men, young men, boys, whatever you want to call yourself, right? We look for guidance. And the way we look for that is who's showing us attention, right? If we're acting out, if we're doing things, making decisions we know we're not supposed to make, we're doing that because we're looking for acceptance somewhere. It's because we're missing something in life. For me, that was my cousin and his crew, right? They were in a gang. They were in a Crip gang there in San Angelo, and that's what I gravitated towards, because it's like the old Tupac song say, right? Even though they sold drugs, they showed love, right? I didn't have that acceptance in the home, but I had it out there on the street, running with those guys, doing those kinds of things. And at this age, I'm 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I'm doing these kinds of things where I'm making these bad decisions because I'm looking for acceptance and guidance. And so we tend to turn towards things like that, right? It's not right, but at the time it's what we know and it's what we're looking for. So when I was growing up, there was this small church. It was called House of Faith, and they would come to like the bad areas of town, if you will, the inner cities, and try to reach out to the kids in the projects, if you will, the places that don't have a lot of community outreach, right? The places that are ignored, where, hey, those kids, those are bad kids, don't even worry about going over there. It's a waste of time. So this small church would come out and kind of put on Bible studies. And I remember seeing them here and there, and, we were out running with the thugs and, doing what thugs do, selling drugs, beating people up, breaking into cars, smashing windows, things like that. And I remember one time I was like, I should try this out, give them a chance. And as men already, young men, number one, we get this false sense of security that if we show emotion, that's a weakness, right? If men cry, that's a weakness. If we reach out for help, that's a weakness. It's not. I'll tell you right now, today as a 32-year-old man, it takes a lot more faith, a lot more strength, and a lot more bravery to sit here and cry in front of a bunch of people that you don't know, okay? And I remember, I should give them a chance, see what they have to say. What do we got to lose? And I remember at the time my brother was like, bro, that's stupid, man. Like, your own parents don't care about you. What do these people care? And he always reverted to these white people, right? Because when you come from those communities, there's not white people there, right? It's predominantly Hispanic, predominantly black. And so my brother's like, these white people don't care about you. They're just here to make themselves feel better. And so, I tried it out. What did I have to lose, right? If someone else, if I could get attention somewhere else, how was that a bad thing? If I can get guidance somewhere else, how could I perceive that as being something negative, right? And so I'd go here and there. My brother would reel me back in. Hey, man, that's stupid. You're wasting your time. These people don't care about you. So I remember one summer they ran a church camp, and it was down at the river. And I told my brother, I was like, hey, man, we don't do stuff. We don't have money to go on vacation. We don't have money to get out of the house, go buy things and do that. I was like, this is free. We can go have fun. It'll be cool. It'll be awesome. We should do it. So I finally convinced my brother, right? And my brother took the brunt of the abuse because he was the oldest. And at that time in our family, if you were the oldest, you took care of everybody. Didn't matter how old you were, right? So my older brother had to look out for me and then my sister when she was born. if anything happened to us, then he got the brunt when he got home, which was really bad. And so finally I convinced him. I was like, we should go. He's like, all right, yeah, that sounds fun. So we go. We have this amazing weekend. I start seeing a change in my brother. He's coming around. We get back, right? And it's funny, they say Satan's constantly working, right? He's always at work. He's always got something ready, right, going forward. So we get back from this amazing weekend. We've learned about God, Jesus. We're kind of on the edge because this is so new to us. So we get home, and the bus drops us off. We walk upstairs to our apartment. My mom answers the door, and we don't recognize her, right? Her face is black. Her eyes are swollen shut. And we learned that while we were gone, my father-in-law went on a cocaine and alcohol binge and beat her the entire weekend, right? So we're up here. We're feeling the confidence. It's great. And then we take one step forward to progress, and we get knocked 5-10 steps back, right? So this all turns around and comes on me because my brother's like, this is your fault. He's like, because if I was here, this wouldn't have happened. And so all the progress we made was lost. And then we revert to why us, right? This life sucks, right? I don't want to wake up, right? We, as a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grader, when you go to sleep and you don't want to wake up, that's a problem, right? That's not normal. And so that's kind of how we grew up, the kind of lifestyle we had. So eventually, my mom figures out that, my stepdad's eventually going to kill one of us because he's just progressing. And in abusive relationships, that's what happens. You progress. It doesn't stay the same, and it doesn't get better. It gets worse. So we moved back to Ozona, which is where my grandma lived. When we get there, I start high school. And, we're still reverting back to what we know. My brother's still hanging out with a bad crew. He's still doing drugs, selling drugs, doing dumb stuff, right? At this age now, at the age you guys are at, especially for you high schoolers, that grace period kind of ends, right? You get caught doing dumb things, illegal things, you're going to get in trouble, right? You're going to go to jail. I'm sure if you look around, there's people that aren't sitting here with you today that that you've seen before, that aren't here because of things they've done, decisions they've made, and mistakes they've made. So I just want you guys to understand that at the age you're at now, that grace period is starting to end, right? So there's no longer forgiveness for some mistakes, some decisions you make. And I'll explain that a little further once I get further in. So my 9th grade year comes around. Same thing. My grandma doesn't have a lot of money. She's running on Social Security, and she's raising the rest of us, which I know was hard, and I don't know how she did it. My freshman year, football starts. We live about 3 miles from the football field. I'm running to practice every day, going through 3 days, walking home every day. That's all I got, right? Football was an outreach for me. And so that's something that helped me kind of stay on track as far as reverting back to the life I had just come from. So my sophomore year rolls around, and my sister gets taken away by CPS. She's 7 years old at this time. She's taken away for the verbal, physical, mental abuse. CPS comes in, removes her from our family immediately, sends her to her dad. And her dad was also an addict. They didn't know about it. And so she gets sent into that situation, coming from the one she had just come from. So once my sister's taken away, my mom becomes an alcoholic. She starts using cocaine, meth, you name it, she does it, right? Using prescription drugs, everything in between. At the same time, my mom becomes suicidal. So all through high school, I'm getting home from baseball tournaments, football games, 1, 2 in the morning. I got to take care of my mom, make sure she's not trying to hurt herself or kill herself. Various methods, you name it, right? Taking an entire bottle of Tylenol, right? Slitting her wrists. Anything you can think of, she tried. And so I'm dealing with my mom. I'm dealing with sports. I'm trying to do what's good. I fall into a good group of kids that do Bible study, come from great families, great upbringings. They're a little more solidified in their faith than I am because I don't. I revert back to why would God put me in this type of situation as a child, right? Because as children we're innocent. We don't know the difference between right and wrong. Eventually we learn it, but that's what we revert back to, right? We question God. Why us? Why is this happening to me? You start blaming other people. You start blaming God for all the bad in your life. And I'll tell you guys this. If we're going to sit here and blame God for the bad things, right, we need to thank Him for the good things, right? If everybody had a shower today or yesterday, you're doing a lot better than the majority of the world. If you were driven to school today or dropped off or you drove, you're doing a lot better than a lot of people, right? If you didn't go to bed hungry last night, right? Those are things. I've gone to bed hungry a million times. I'll tell you, it sucks. And it's a bad place to be, especially when you have no control over it and you're, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. So at this time, my mom eventually gets arrested. Her and my father-in-law get drunk one night. She ends up protecting herself, which cost him his life, and she ended up killing him because of some bad stuff that happened. She gets sentenced to 10 years in prison, which from my perspective was good because it helped her clean up, and she came home sober, and she stayed sober for a little bit. And so I left home at about 10th grade. I knew my grandma couldn't take care of me. I knew what kind of burden it was for her to try and raise a 16-year-old man that, was in sports and eating a lot. I'm sure even you younger guys playing sports, you guys eat a lot. It's expensive. Ask your parents. It costs a lot of money to feed kids. So I knew my grandma couldn't do it, so I left home because I didn't want to put that burden on her. I bounced from place to place. I was a gypsy, I stayed with friends, families, things of that nature, and tried to get back into church, right? Tried, and it worked sometimes and sometimes it didn't. At the same time I'm doing this, my brother's still on his stuff. My brother dropped out of school in 9th grade, right? By 9th grade, he was using meth, cocaine, prescription pills, marijuana, alcohol, everything in between, you name it. So eventually my brother ends up going to prison once I graduate high school. So my brother died at 33. So that puts 14 years. From 18 to the age of 33, he was in and out of prison, right? And I revert back to the scenario we gave at the beginning. When everybody asked my brother, hey man, why you like this? Why do you do what you do? He said, this is all I know. This is what I revert back to. I revert back to what I know. That's basic human nature, right? You're going to revert back to what you know. You'll never rise to a specific occasion. You're simply going to revert back to what you know and where you came from. And so that's what he would say, man, that's all I know. That's where I came from. I came from selling drugs, families that did drugs. My cousins were addicts. My mom was an addict. My dad, my father-in-law, anybody and everybody you can think of that surrounded me, they were addicts, alcoholics. They sold drugs. They've all been to prison up and down the chain. So you hear about these generational curses, right, in the loop. So kids raising kids, that's where it starts. You got 14, 15, 16-year-olds that are having babies raising kids, right, because they made one bad decision. One bad decision led to all this, leads to everything that we've talked about. And so that, in order to break that generational curse, that constant loop, it's really, really hard. So people ask me all the time, and I went to the Marine Corps. So when me and Coach Vargas were dating all through high school, she had a full-ride scholarship to play softball, and she turned down some D1 offers to play local so that we could be close. So, like kids, we made a dumb decision, right? We thought we were in love, and so we ran with it, right? So we end up getting pregnant. Faith loses her scholarship. I fell out of college. I was at MPD at the time as a cadet. They dropped me from their program. I have absolutely no options. I don't have money, and I don't want to revert back to what I know, right? I want to do what's right, and I want to start making money the right way. So I go to the Marine Corps. That's the only option I had, and so I ran with it. So here's Faith and I, 18 and 19 years old, packing up, moving to California, making $800 a month, figuring how we're going to put food on the table for a newborn baby. I was making $800 a month, so if you can imagine what $800 would get you, that's about where we were. At that time, when I deployed to Afghanistan, you see a lot of things in life that, again, make you question your faith, make you question God. Why is this happening? Seeing dead bodies, dead kids, things of that nature really puts a lot of questions in your mind. In the military, there's a lot of people that are atheists, right? Same thing in law enforcement, because we see such horrific things. We encounter such horrific things. We always question, if we have a truly loving God, why do we have the things that exist in the world, right? And I'll revert back to what the Bible says, that Satan is basically the ruler of the earth, right? He walks the earth day in and day out, trying to create as much destruction as he can with the short time he has. And so here we are, we're kids raising kids because of one decision we made, one dumb decision. And, it happens again and again. And by the time we had Autumn, which is our number 3, I'm crying. I'm in the bathroom crying because I don't know how we're going to do it. We don't have money. We don't have food, things of that nature. Every Christmas, for my kids from age 1 through 5, the only Christmas they got was Toys for Tots, right? Donations. And I can tell you as a parent, it is very hard to sit there and let somebody else, or tell your kids, hey, we can't afford this. Or, hey, I know you wanted this, but you're not going to get that this year, right? Those are all things when we're having fun, right? Especially you older boys. We're having fun. We're just living our lives. That's not going to happen to me. That's all things you need to think about going forward, right? We didn't have parents there to help us. We had to figure it out at 18 and 19, and it's tough, and it's hard. And it's really hard to humble yourself when someone else is like, hey, man, like, I know you're hurting, here's some cash, or here's some stuff for the kids. It's really hard, and it puts you in a really bad place because you have to sit there and admit that you made a mistake because you were a kid yourself, and now you can't provide for the kids you're bringing in. So the military was good for me. I did a lot of growing up, learned a lot of things. Again, struggled with my faith, the things I saw in war while I was deployed. I really struggled with that. So once we got out of the Marine Corps, we moved back to Midland. I wanted to get in police work because it's something I've always wanted to do. So it was hard at first. I prayed about it. I started putting God first, asking God, what do you want me to do, right? Where am I supposed to be? Things of that nature. I was at DPS. I was a state trooper with Department of Public Safety. And I wasn't happy. There was a lot going on. I wasn't home a lot. While I was there in the last 4 months, I lost my grandma and my brother and then my mom. My brother was murdered in front of my grandma's house because of the lifestyle that he chose, right? And so my brother and I had a falling out, right? Because you can only tell someone so long that, hey, you got to change. And I told my brother the last time I talked to him, I said, this life is going to kill you, right? The decisions you make are going to influence you. They're going to impact you, and they're going to have consequences, right? So the last time I saw my brother, I was loading him into an ambulance after he got shot because I was in town to bury my grandma. And 2 days before we buried her, he got shot 4 times. And as I loaded him into the ambulance, I kissed him on the head. And I said, I know we've been through a lot, but I just need you to know that I love you. He never recovered, and he ended up dying as a result of that. But how did he get there, right? That's the problem, how he got there. He chose the lifestyle that we knew that he reverted back to. He was selling drugs. He was sleeping around, doing whatever he thought was cool, what was fun, messing with the wrong girls, messing with other people's girls. He was still doing drugs. He was doing meth, prescription drugs, cocaine, alcohol, everything in between. We came from the same lifestyle, but we made different choices, right? Because our choices are what impact us in the end. That's what makes us, right? We can only make excuses so long for what we did. At the end of the day, once you get into those older years, those excuses don't matter. You will be held accountable. And I can tell you that from where I work today. I deal with juveniles all the time, young adults 18 to 21, people who I have to hold accountable now because they won't do it themselves. People that I'm arresting, put in jail, that are going to go to prison for 10, 15 years because of decisions that they're making, right? So, in closing, I'll leave you with this. This whole time that all this is going on, I'm questioning my faith, right? I'm looking at only the bad things in my life. God, why is this happening to me? Why did you do this? You know, why was I poor? Why was I abused? Why didn't my parents love me? Why was I hungry all the time? Right? Why did I get chosen for this life? But I failed to neglect that He had put amazing people in my life. He had put people in my life to persuade me to do things different, right? Starting with House of Faith. He put people like my wife in my life, her family, people that when things were that bad where I was trying to revert back to what I knew, that would pull me away and be like, no, don't do that. Right? It goes back to the footprints in the sand. Who remembers that story? Where he's telling God, why have you forsaken me? You left me. I look back and I only see my footprints, right? And God's like, no, those are mine. I was carrying you. Right? I didn't get here by myself. I got here because God carried me through that, and He helped me. And like I said before, if we're going to blame God for the injustices in the world, for the bad things in the world, then we need to thank Him for the good things we have. So I found this quote, and I'll leave you guys with this. I know we're out of time here, and I wish we had more time. But I'll leave you with this quote that I found. And it says, this life can be difficult. God never said there wouldn't be storms. In fact, He said persecution would come. Our hope is not in the absence of storms, but that He will be with us and that we will keep abiding. We have a race to win, a crown to obtain, and these words to hear. Well done. So, gents, don't make decisions lightly. Especially you older boys, man. That stuff can really affect you when it comes to moving forward and trying to progress into college, careers, military, whatever you got coming up. With all that, I appreciate you guys listening to me. I know we were back and forth and there was a lot to cover, but that's basically my life in 20 minutes. So I appreciate your attentiveness, and you guys go out, make good decisions, hold your faith, be strong, especially in today's world. It's hard to be a Christian young man in today's world. So you guys be strong, go out there and do what you're supposed to do. With that, you guys are dismissed. Get to class.
Hey, if you've been a senior here since kindergarten, or if you're in Stuco, I need you to come up to the front real fast. elementary that's gonna like
Stuco officers.
elementary's gonna be like pounding in here, so you might have to
I
figure
know,
out
I
all-
know. I just, his father was already here.